the Chicago Bulls had their first preseason game yesterday, and in that game, at least seems like the play on the court matched what Billy Donovan's words were with how he wanted to change the offense. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we're going to talk about the defensive potential of that second unit and the way that Patrick Williams was used in that preseason game. We're going to get to all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. And first up, we're going to talk about the Chicago Bulls offense. So, specifically when the starters were in there, with more so than just the starters, with the players that are for sure going to have a role on this team, right? And so when you look at the Bulls, they shot 10 of their first 19 shots were three-pointers, right? And so more three-point shot attempts was a big sticking point for both the players, the front office, and the coaching staff at media day. And so we also attempted 4 free throws while we held the Milwaukee Bucks to none, right? We had 4 offensive rebounds and only 1 turnover in the first quarter. And we led 30-21 after the first quarter. And guess what? The brand of basketball that the Chicago Bulls played in that first quarter was fun to watch. The ball was moving around. They played a more modern style. And, they really brought everything together that we wanted to see from the team. And it seemed like more so in the second quarter they were working on specific sets, things like that. But at least it seems like that new evolution that we've talked about, that we've wanted to see from the Chicago Bulls team, showed itself at least in the first preseason game. Now, I don't want to overstate or understate, that as well. But like I always said this, right? And I tell you guys, what you want to take away from preseason isn't necessarily the impact that the Bulls are going to have, but you do want to take things away from their ideologies, right? What are they trying to do as a team? What's the method there, right? What's the team identity that they're trying to build with that offensive side of the ball? And Coby White said that. He said, quick decisions, getting downhill, creating opportunities for us to get the best shot. That's definitely how we want to play next season. And it seemed like it came through, right? Now, you are going to see probably Zach and DeMar and Vooch definitely take more shots than what they took in that first preseason game. But I'll tell you what, as a framework of a style of play for the Chicago Bulls, it's definitely a more modern style of play. It's definitely something that fits in today's basketball. I mean, they ended up with well over 30 three-point attempts in this game, right? And that's what you want to see, but take smart shots. I think more so a lot in the second half, especially, they weren't necessarily taking the best shots because of the unit that they had out there. But we're seeing that growth and evolution from this team. And, even Billy Donovan talked about the importance of keeping Zach and Coby together, which may point to signs that Coby White holding on to that starting point guard position, because he's talked about how the chemistry that they built last season when Patrick Williams got moved to the bench. And what did we say coming into the season, right? Player development is as important a thing with anything this season for the Chicago Bulls, as well as evaluation, right? And, Billy Donovan always talks about finding the right combination of guys. And if one of your right combinations of players is 2 of your young players that one you drafted here, one you did inherit in Coby White, but you guys re-signed him. He's now a Acme guy is Coby White. They re-signed him. He's an Acme guy, right? And so if Coby White and Patrick Williams keep their style of play up, right, in the way that they were able to perform and really just understand how to get theirs, even with playing amongst that core 3 players, that's what you want to see for the future of this basketball team. And so we're going to see. We got another game on Thursday against the Denver Nuggets. We played them Thursday and Sunday, actually, so we're good to take a look at that. But it was a lot of positive to take away from the Chicago Bulls team in their style of play. Now, you definitely want to see them hit shots at a better frequency. We really didn't hit the shots at the clip that I would like to see. We did start off, right? We started off with that. It was pretty good, but we kind of fell off after that. We want to keep that going for the Chicago Bulls team and see what we're really going to get out of this. But I love the fact that Coby White and Patrick Williams are either way going to be big parts of this team, and Billy Donovan seems like he's starting to understand how to use them a little bit better. And that brings us to our next topic, talking about Patrick Williams' usage, right? Patrick Williams played minutes with that starting group, as we talked about, and in that starting group, he still got his shots. It was mainly three-pointers, some catch-and-shoot things. He didn't really get to do a lot of facilitating. But then when he got left out there with the second group of players, right, he really took on an initiator role, and this is something that I had to catch on a rewatch, right? And so, Billy Donovan talked about that again in his media day. So it said that, even though, Patrick Williams, if he's a starter, it's still about finding him some opportunities with that second unit so maybe he can do a little bit more, right? And so Patrick Williams has always had that point forward type potential. Right now, how much you want to go to that, how successful he's going to be in that role, it's going to be telling. It's up to him to learn to perform in that. But the growth from Patrick Williams, the aggression from Patrick Williams, the focus from Patrick Williams seemed legit. Again, one preseason game. He finished the game with 13 points, going 4 of 9 shooting overall. He had 3 3-pointers, had a steal and a block, right? He did only have 2 rebounds, which is something that we definitely want to talk about and look at, right? So that's a sign for concern. He also had 2 turnovers in that as well. So not a perfect night for Patrick Williams by any stretch. And I don't want to try to paint it as all of a sudden it was this perfect night from Patrick Williams and he should shut up all of his doubters. No, not that. But this did go a long way in showing that maybe that mentality change that we heard from Patrick Williams is legit, right? And so, finding spots with P. Will, right, especially with that bench unit, and they're going to need to find, especially if Coby White stays the starting point guard, which I do think we're probably going to see a different starting point guard in there by everything Billy Donovan has said, even though he loved the play of Coby White. I do probably expect to see Javon Carter get a chance to start in there as well, just to see what that looks like. But that second unit for the Chicago Bulls, when you really look at that, Javon Carter, Ayo Dosunmu, Alex Caruso, Torrey Craig, Andre Drummond, right? That is a second unit that has such great defensive potential for this team. And you're still going to need some scoring. So that means getting some spurts in there where it's 4 of those players with a Coby White, getting some spurts in there where there's a couple of those players with Patrick Williams, even getting DeMar, Zach, Vooch out there with a combination of those players as well to kind of keep up that scoring. But that defensive prowess that team has, listen, that second unit could be a nightmare for opposing teams when you look at just how they can up the intensity defensively. And then via that, by upping that intensity, hopefully getting turnovers, getting out in transition. That's a second unit. When you look at Javon Carter, Ayo Dosunmu, Alex Caruso, Torrey Craig, and Andre Drummond, that is a second unit that if they get out in transition via playing solid defense, getting defensive rebounds, getting out in transition, that you got to watch your head, right? We know Ayo can absolutely dunk it on somebody. We know what Alex Caruso can as well do with dunking on people's head. Javon Carter out there to provide some stretching of the floor for sure. Torrey Craig can do a little bit of everything, right? And float around out there, causing turnovers, things like that. And then Andre Drummond. We know Andre Drummond as a trailer, as long as you have a point guard that can catch him at the right time while he's penetrating and get that dunk, right? That's going to be a second unit that I think is going to be key to watch the rest of this preseason and once the start of the regular season happens, because that second unit, the defensive ability of that second unit is just bananas. It's out of this world, really, when you think about it. And so I hope that that's what continues as well for the Chicago Bulls team. Like I said, a lot of positive things to take away from this team. A lot of some signs for concern as well. The overall shooting percentage was questionable, but again, like I said with that, I think at some point in this game, the team was trying to go through certain actions to get certain player involved and get them certain looks to see how they did, especially in that second half of that game. Dalen Terry, a lot of people concerned about Dalen Terry, him going 1 of 5. And, even though he got a steal and 2 assists, 2 rebounds in that game, Dalen Terry still seems a little bit uncontrolled out there at times, but I think he's going to get that together. I know a lot of Bulls fans have the concern or say that he's not going to be an NBA player. I think that it's too early to write that story on Dalen Terry, but I do understand where those concerns are rooted in him at. Ernulop Biddum, to me, in the next game, Bateem, I think now we know it's Bateem, right? Ernulop, Bateem. Bateem has to be more featured when you're going in the second half of the game. If they're going to go like they did against the Milwaukee Bucks, against the Denver Nuggets, where it's just all young, second, third string players, Windy City Bulls players, if it's all those guys, I would like to see Bateem featured a lot more, because I think Bateem, like he showed, that trigger, he got a quick trigger on that 3-point shot. Has some things that he needs to work on as well. Julian Phillips flashed some signs of positivity, specifically defensively. He has some things he needs to work on as well. But, those moments. It was good to see Justin Lewis as well out there for 6 minutes. He went 1 of 3 in that. He got 2 points, but good to see Justin Lewis get back on the court. We know that this front office saw enough in him where they signed him on draft night 2 years ago. And now, he had the ACL injury, but, watching his development as well watching Windy City Bulls games is going to be fun and exciting this year. And so, the Bulls still can. They have up until the official start of the season to decide what they're going to do with Carlik Jones. And Carlik playing 9 minutes in this, going over 4 from the field. And could it be, if can Bateem show enough to where they maybe look to move in Bateem or somebody else, right, into the actual NBA rotation and maybe go ahead and waive Carlik Jones? There's a possibility of that, right? I want to be clear. I don't know if that's something that they're necessarily going to do, because even with Bateem, as good as that trigger looks on him, still defensive issues, right? Didn't really do a lot off dribble as well. So you want to kind of work on that part of his game if you can. But listen, if 3-point shooting becomes a huge need for the Chicago Bulls team, and as we talked about, that bench unit that has a lot of defensive stalwarts there, if they need some shooting and some scoring, Bateem may end up being a guy who gets the call up. And if he does, if he shines, he may not never let that go. They may not never let him get back down there to the G League. So that's something to look out for as well. But overall, I know a lot of positive things. I know there are going to be a lot of pessimistic Bulls fans that take some negative out of this game. And, we'll see how they shore that part up as the preseason goes along. But at least for me, there was a lot of things that I needed to see from this Bulls team and a lot of the evolution. Let's just hope that it continues and be something consistent from the Chicago Bulls team. But with that said, we got one voicemail that I want to get into. This one's from Cornelius, and this is about the first preseason game.
Hey, it was good, King. This is Cornelius. I'm just here to talk about the little preseason game, man. I'm impressed. I really don't have no complaints. It was a bad shoot night, but like I said, it's the first preseason game, so I'm not really worried about that. What I was looking at was to see was Pete Will go back up that shit he was talking. And he did. I'm happy to see what he's doing for now, and let's see what he can go for. And like I said, I feel like he's going to really take that leap, not a step, but a leap. And I want to talk about the second unit, man. That defense, at first I wasn't really agreeing with Coby being a starter when I first heard it. But then when I looked at the second unit, I was like, oh, Javon Carter, Alex Caruso, Torrey Craig. You could probably add in Julian Phillips, Andre Drummond. Wow. That's IO. That's a pretty good defensive second unit. Not pretty good, a great defensive second unit. That's what I'm seeing for the future. And I really believe we're going to be a top 5 to 3 defense. And I believe we're going to be into games because of them. They're going to keep us in the games because of the defense and because of what they do, man. Like I said, the steals, everything that they was doing, man. When I realized and I noticed it, I was like, okay, Billy, maybe you finally did something right. Maybe you finally get these rotations together. But that's about it, man. I believe P. Will is going to take this league, and I believe this defense is going to really help us, propel us to make the playoffs this year. Thank you, King. Always appreciate you. What you do, Haize. Bless you.
All right, shout out to Cornelius for leaving that. As far as Patrick Williams making that leap this season, I came into the season really saying that expect another step from Patrick Williams, maybe not necessarily that leap. But I tell you what, if he plays with an aggressive mindset, I need to see him take more players off the dribble. And if Billy Donovan is actually going to use him playing him some with that second unit to kind of build his confidence in other aspects of his game, we could very well see Patrick Williams make that leap this season. I'm not willing to bet on it quite yet. I need to see a more consistent, a larger sample size, and need to see it once the regular lights are on with the regular season. But at least this first preseason game, all signs are pointing to that direction for P. Will. Let's just make sure that it continues for him. Now, you brought up something that I talked about earlier in the show, the defense. This Chicago Bulls team, it was top 5 defensively in efficiency last season. And we talked about why, the fact that they really didn't go after offensive rebounds. But I tell you what, this is a team that I look at and say, hey, in the half court, especially with the defensive growth of Coby White, Patrick Williams being more defensive, more aggressive, and then now you have Javon Carter, Torrey Craig coming in there with the defensive players and Alex Caruso and stuff that we already know, Ayo Dosunmu, Andre Drummond. This is a team that absolutely can be one of the better teams defensively. And I'll go on to say this. If this team can get to being top 3 in defense per your estimation, and God forbid top 2, we're no longer talking about a team that is just going to try to skate into the 6th seed. We're talking about a team that can compete for a 4th or 5th seed. But again, way too early to necessarily start saying those things for sure, but you start seeing the framework of what that team is. A defensive identity paired with offensive evolution for the Chicago Bulls team, the sky's the limit, right? And so if that continues for this team and we keep seeing that, a lot of people, a lot of naysayers, both inside and outside of Chicago Bears fandom, are going to have to eat their words when it comes to this team. But again, more so than any of that, I just want to see this team do the things that we saw flashes of last night, do it consistently. And if you do that consistently, make that habit, make that routine, make that your identity, I tell you what, it's going to be a long season for Chicago Bulls opponents, and we may actually have one of those teams now that we want, that we love here in the city of Chicago, and that's a team that fights, competes, and that may lose some tight games, may lose some close games, may lose some nail-biters, but be in contention, be in it. They're going to win a lot of those too as well. And keep in mind, we didn't even really get to see the offense heavily feature Zach LaVine-DeMar or Nikola Vucevic, and we still put up a really good offensive differential in that first quarter and, in the first half to a lesser extent. So when you look at using your offensive stars a little bit more, hey, listen, the sky is really the limit for this Bulls team, and we're going to see how it plays out this season. But that's my thoughts. You guys can let me know your thoughts, as always, down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.